Well, happy Friday, everybody. I'm Nick Slavic. I'm the proprietor of the Nick Slavic Painting and Restoration Company here in Minnesota. And this is Ask a Painter Live. It's a weekly live Facebook show where I use my over 2 decades of experience as a painter, a craftsman, a business owner, a colorist, restorationist to answer any questions you have. Now, this is a forum for homeowners. Homeowners, what have you always wanted to ask a pro? And for business owners, anything you want to talk, entrepreneurship, apprenticeship, marketing, business, statistics, things like that, we can get into all that. Now, today I am in a very, very special place. We have people staring at me right here. We have Jason Paris right here. I am with Jason Paris, owner of Paris Painting, here in Robbinsdale, is it?
Golden Valley.
Golden Valley. Well, one of the suburbs of Minneapolis-St. Paul here. Recently, I met Jason at the Craftsmanship Forum in Chicago. We'd been corresponding online for a little bit, and finally we got to meet, and I could not be more impressed with this guy. And yes, on paper, we are all just business, painting business owners, but this guy, I think, does something better than anybody else in the world with a painting business, and we're going to show you that in just a second here. Now, a couple bits of housekeeping here. Oh, why don't we introduce you guys here? Who do we have here?
I'm Hoken.
Hoken, and what do you do for Jason?
Primarily doing sales, estimating, that good stuff.
Wonderful, and you weren't paid to say that. Or maybe you were, since we're at work today. Yes, sir.
And I'm Chet, and Jason and I are partners in this endeavor.
Awesome, that's wonderful. We might query you guys a little bit later for some questions here, but otherwise, I don't want to waste any more time. Jason, the owner here, could not be more of an impressive paint business owner here. So, Jason, tell these people what you do better than anybody else in the world with painting businesses.
So the answer is nothing, right? There's nothing we do better than anybody else.
But there is this behind us here.
So one thing I like, this is all in progress too. This is kind of a minimal viable product. It's winter, so we're kind of redoing everything. But this is kind of version 1.0 of just making like a visual management system. So I really enjoy this kind of stuff. This was probably my main focus when we started the company, is working with spreadsheets and getting things to kind of auto-populate and live show. And it could be, there are probably things out there that are better than it, but for me it works really well. It's super customizable, so I zoomed out a ton because I didn't want to put any personal information out there, but in this area is kind of our visual scheduler, and it's all based off of a kind of a tile method. So you basically have like little tiles that are shown that are projects, and then the corners are color coded that has different logistical stages to a project, like washing or colors or work orders or paint delivery. It has some key information like scheduling parameters that auto-populates in from a data set when the estimate is done. And our estimates are just done off of G sheets, so it all ties in together. That's really what that is. It's a good visual representation of the guys that are in the
That's
field.
absolutely beautiful. And we should give some people context. When were we in Chicago? 2 months ago? 3 months ago?
Yeah, in October.
October?
Yep.
And at that time, you were showing me a metal wall with subway tiles with writing on them magnetized to the wall.
Yep.
And we had talked about this magical touch screen, visualization, monitors, this and that, and I thought you were way farther away from that than you were. This is it. I showed up today and you have this.
Yeah, so there's obviously some like friction hurdles, technology hurdles, but I think we're getting closer. It is always a process. That's kind of a general philosophy thing. You're always getting closer to the end result. And that metal wall, I showed you kind of the evolution of different things in our business, but the metal wall got us closer to this, and this will get us closer to whatever we end up doing next year, which will get us closer to whatever we do 3 years from now.
So something that I've come, you run a very successful painting business, and that alone is something to be proud of. But this is I mean, when we talked at the Craftsmanship Forum, I got a sense that you were sort of a master logistician. I had no idea. Even showing up here today, you've kind of given me the quick and dirty tour of everything. I mean, this is, I don't know that there's a lot of people who do a lot of spreadsheets. They don't do anything like this. This is super impressive.
I think you're very good at winning friends and influencing people. I appreciate you saying those nice things. So that's kind of the scheduler. So this is all populated from a data set. So again, the data set gets entered, and you put the swim lane of who the product's assigned to, and then the date parameters, and that kind of creates a cell. you can then move things in here and it'll populate the data set as well from the status. So these are obviously in progress, pending. We have a quality control box, I think in that corner, and then you have ready to invoice box, then you have needs to be scheduled or put on the wall box. This is obviously not the full board, you can kind of scroll around. Then this is other cool information that I like. So again, this all live populates with the data set, but I really like visual management of like a graph. So it shows like our sales, our production, and number of estimates year over year. It's good to kind of benchmark where you are versus previous years, and knowing the ebbs and flows of the seasonality that at least we run into. Breaks it off into different pie charts. And again, there are lots of people do this with different CRMs. I like this because I can customize it and I change it year over year. And then this is our dashboard. And again, I've kind of zoomed out because there's just information on it. But it gives, basically basic benchmarking on your KPIs. What are you looking for? What's interested? Your key performance indicators. Nick and I dove into the data a little bit about what you can figure out from it. The margins by labor source, kill ratio by lead source, things like that. And then even combining different things. So you say, from if this person sells a job that this person does, it seems like it always goes poorly. Is there truth to that? Is it a fact? Is it a feeling? And diving into the data. So in quickly, we're going to dive into a lot of that more. We're gonna get out of here so these guys don't have to sit there nervously behind us. But in all that data, your huge mind, have you found anything that was just insanely changing to your day? Yeah, I think so, especially with different crews, looking at the margins kind of on different crews, and at times someone can really frustrate you, but then you see that they're always performing very profitably, and so you give them a little bit more grace. Or if someone is having a tough time with their projects, and then you're a little less lenient with them. As also, I think we were looking at sources of leads, and so we work with a lot of general contractors, and like there was one where we have a 90% kill ratio with him. So
by kill you mean you do an estimate and you get the estimate,
and you sell the project.
Yep.
So if he calls us, I'm usually out there that day, if not the next day.
Right on there.
We have another one that we're at like 12% kill ratio, and so we'll still service his leads, going into next year.
But you just won't hop up
from
your desk and
But he's not an A priority.
Go do it. Yeah.
Yep. So those are kind of ways you can use metrics. And or like with a salesperson. So Hoken jumped on early this year. It's like, it's his first year. You're only selling paint, and he's very talented and very handsome and all those great things.
All of those.
But it's concerning. But then you look at the data, and he's performing very well, and it just puts you at ease. So
yeah, that's true.
Whenever you kind of have a feeling, it's always good to benchmark it against facts. So if you feel like there's an issue, what are your facts? What are your feelings?
That's a great thing. Now, you being who you are, do you ever feel that you miss out on some interpersonal things because you're and if you, do you mind if I show people your?
Yeah, you can show this. Don't get too close up to the screen.
So here is his workstation here. This is super impressive. A little command module. So do you ever feel that because you're surrounded by a lot of this, you might miss out on some personal stuff, or do you rely on other people, or do you feel you have a good grasp?
Yeah, so everyone has their strengths and weaknesses.
Yep.
Like Chet's much better at socializing than I am networking wise.
Yep.
Right. So if your question is like, do I miss out on, what is your question?
Does this come at the expense of being connected to your people personally?
Maybe. I think this with like the team and the company, it probably helps me connect better or more true, and to get kind of a real. Yeah, I like connecting with people over data instead of feelings in general.
Well,
But I also think generally like socialization is probably not my A skill, and they're both laughing because my wife would probably laugh too.
But I think that it's comforting, even if you're 10% less good at the interpersonal stuff, for your employees to see that you care this much to do this, that probably makes way different. It makes up for that. So, all right. Well, if there's anything else you want to show us here, go ahead. Otherwise, we're going to plop down and we're gonna get into the weeds a little bit about a few things. So, wonderful. Let's go on through. All right, guys. Have a productive day.
Good to see you.
All right. So we're going to walk down to the conference room here. Excuse us. Okay, so into the conference room here, and if you guys have any questions, this will be as long as Jason doesn't mind, we're gonna do regular sort of Ask a Painters or segments or something if you'll have us. Not only are we both Minnesota people, but when you have a resource like Jason around, I feel that I would not be doing my job sharing a little bit of what you've learned about this, because I get a feeling like, you're probably connected to some other painting companies, but really, I mean, people barely know about me and I do this. I can't imagine, people probably are not going to stumble across Paris Painting, if they're in Texas or something,
You're very kind. Yep.
Well, anyway.
Pumping up my tires.
But what we have a PDCA contractor question of the week, and we're going to go heavy on business today because of who we have here. But the PDCA contractor question of the week dealt with preparing surfaces for bonding to check if there's adhesion. Now, a couple general examples. Let's say we're talking interior woodwork. That's usually one that gives people a lot of trouble. Interior walls, in 1 out of 1,000, you might find some walls with oil paint on them yet, but it's not going to be the case. In 24 years, I've experienced once where a house was painted with interior oil paint on the walls, and the homeowners didn't tell me about it, and I caught it right away and I dealt with it. But a lot of it has to do with chalky and poorly prepped siding outside and interior millwork. Those seems to give contractors the biggest problem. So I'm going to run through 2 quick scenarios. So the PDCA contractor question of the week here, testing for adhesion. Interior millwork, there are 2 basic tests you can do that if they pass, if these 2 adhesion tests are adhered to and pass, you will almost never run into any problems. One is the scratch test. It's the easiest thing on earth. Whenever I set out to do an odd project, something that I know there might be a problem with adhesion, what I will do is I will do absolutely no prep to one portion of it. So let's say you have the back of a closet door. We're going to paint the doors anyway, so why not back of a closet door? I will do absolutely no prep on one panel, and I will scuff sand, I will wipe down with alcohol, I will shop vac, I will tack rag another panel, and I'll apply the same primer in the way that I would apply it in the rest of the house. If you're spraying, spray. If you're brushing, brush. Do those 2 panels, and then that basically tells you if your prep does anything for it. So the scratch test, leave that primer go overnight, go back there with your fingernail, scratch it. If nothing comes off both panels, you know that you're going to get a good bond no matter what. Now, that doesn't mean you go without prep processes, but it just means that it's belt and suspenders at that point. I've never done a scratch test and then backed off prep. I've always done it because I don't want to find that one instance where you scuff sand it, you shop vac it, you tack rag it, you maybe even wipe it down with alcohol, and you do it and it still doesn't bond. Most of the times, though, you'll find that lacquer, for as poor as a finish that it is, stuff will actually adhere pretty well to it with a minimal scuff sanding. Now, on the outside of a house, you have a whole bunch of other stuff. The weather has deteriorated paint. You might get a little chalky, and you might get a lot of weird sort of environmental stuff to it. Easiest way to do it is, again, I always bookmark my problems. So you want to find what happens if you do no prep and just go right over. And then you want to do your prep. So I would wash an area, scrape an area, sand an area, prime an area, caulk anything that needs to be done, put some stuff, if you've spot primed, you can check that. If not, go top coat right over it, and then do a no prep area. And obviously you want to mark them well. Try to use exactly the brushes, the actual coatings in the method you're going to do. A lot of times there can be adhesion differences between brushing and spraying. So with chalky siding, a lot of the exterior paints are getting really good on that. There are some additives like emulsibond that you can put in the paint. You put it in the first coat and then you negate it from the second coat because it doesn't do that well with actual wear and tear from the environment. But in a lot of cases, I run across a lot of pre-finished metal siding, pre-finished masonite. We're probably talking 40, 50, 60 years old, give or take, and the stuff is chalky. Sometimes the coating has deteriorated to the point where it's just running off the siding. And it's always you still want to do a lot of prep. Even if you're using some emulsibond, even if you're using really good paint, you really, really want to still go through the prep processes, because you might be able to get something to to stick immediately, but if you've ever heard like a metal agricultural pole building on a cold day when the sun comes in and out of the clouds, you actually hear the tin move. And a lot of people say, well, metal is stable, there's no moisture that goes through, it doesn't move, but if you've ever heard that, I mean, that's a clear indication that there is so much physical movement that it's actually creaking. So you can get something to adhere now, but you just want to make sure that, 5-10 years from now that it's going to adhere as well. So super cheap insurance, wash, scrub, agitate. Don't forget, a pressure washer alone will do so much, but using something like Simple Green on the outside, using a house wash, even a lot of times just dish detergent, degreasers and things like that do great. Agitate. Agitation probably does 70% of the work. Pressure washer will do a lot, but agitating just really, really gets that stuff off the siding and gets it off. And then test out some primers, test out some top coats, scratch test. Number one, if it passes the scratch test, 99% of the time you're good. The other test you can do is the crosshatch test, where you go through the same process of prep and no prep, your two examples, put your coating, put your primer on there, and you take a razor blade and you make a whole bunch of crosshatches, kind of like a checkerboard. And then I use blue tape. A lot of people use either duct tape or tan tape or things like that. I've not found a lot of difference in those tests. If it's going to fail, it's going to fail. If it passes the scratch test and you still want some extra insurance, do the crosshatch test, put the blue tape over it, burnish it with your hand, and peel it up, and nothing should come off. You're going to get a little bit of, from when you make the crosshatches, the knife will actually loosen up tiny, tiny little bits. If that stuff comes off the tape, that's not a fail. If those squares come up, or parts of the squares come up, that's a fail. So then you want to try out different primers, different top coats, things like that. Now, enough of the boring paint stuff. Let's talk the logistics stuff. Now, give us a quick indication, and I always make sure that you don't share anything you don't want to, but give us an indication of your business, just so we can get some context. What size, place, market?
Yeah, so we're located in Golden Valley, Minnesota. It's right outside of Minneapolis, so we're kind of in the suburbs, kind of here.
Yep.
So there's a lot of people around here. The West Metro of Minnesota, there's a lot of great clients. It's a more wealthy area of the metro. So there's some very good value-oriented clients in this area. Minnesota's economy is doing very well. Historically does well. It has a really strong, I think, like the health industry. Medical devices are really strong here.
We get a lot of smart people here.
Yeah, there's a lot of Fortune 500 companies that are based
3M
here.
headquarters right down the road.
I've heard it's hard to get corporate executives to move to Minnesota, but once they move here, it's hard to get them to leave.
Makes sense.
So Minnesota maybe hopefully they get some good branding in their Super Bowl here.
Yeah.
But it's in February, so we'll see. Maybe that's not the best branding.
We'll never replicate San Diego, but this is pretty good.
Yeah, so it's got a lot of good positives to it. So this is where we are so people want to get just like a basic snapshot of understanding, right? So we're a young company. I formed the LLC in 2012, right? The basic story. I did a couple of decks that year. 2013, I printed off some business cards and just knocked on doors. And at the end and just doing a kind of more hobby kind of side work. And then at the end of 2013, I quit my job and went full time into it, going into 2014. So it depends on how you slice it up, right? You could say 14, 15, 16.
Yep.
This is our 4th year in, or our 6th year in.
Yep.
We're kind of so we're a younger company, so we're still definitely figuring things out. We do mostly residential projects, 90% residential.
Mm-hmm.
We'll get kind of those one-off commercial projects where you're kind of referred into it, but it's not really an active channel that we do.
Yeah.
So a lot of residential interior, exterior, a lot of direct client, kind of your typical homeowner client is really what our bread and butter is. We're fairly seasonal, so we do, I think it's like 75% of our revenue in the summer months, and then only 25% in the winter months. So very seasonal swings that we have in Minnesota, and we really thrive in the summer and kind of embrace slowing down a little bit in the winter. We do a lot of projects, so we're just over a $2 million company for what we produce, and then we obviously sell, beyond that going into the next year. But that's like a general volume of what we are.
And how many guys does it take to do
that? So in the summer, again, we're fairly seasonal. So I think in the summer we're about mid-30s or so that we run, and they're very productive guys. And right now we probably have anywhere from 8 to 12 guys in the winter.
Okay. And all employees?
A
Do you
mix.
use
Yeah,
it
so we
is
use
a
some
mix, okay.
subcontractors. So we have a mix of employees and subcontractors, and we found that that's worked well for us.
Okay. You've obviously, if you want to share some year-over-year percentage growth numbers to give people context, that'd be great. But you've been on a huge growth.
Right. So like simple math, you don't go from 0 to 2 million, in 5 years without having a lot of year-over-year growth.
Yep. And processes in place, I would imagine.
Yeah, or just elbow grease and hard work, because
it doesn't happen by accident.
Yeah. Well, I think so. I'm trying to think of the best thing that I can share with people that's useful. Right. I don't want to bore people with a story that isn't helpful, but
no, these people want that. So,
yeah. So I'm a big fan of your show. Right. We love watching Nick Slavic. I make all the guys watch it whenever I can.
Must be a form of punishment around them. Late, they got to watch an Ask a Painter.
And then my wife's like, "What are you watching at night?" And it's a Nick Slavic YouTube video. So I would say, obviously, year-over-year growth has been really high, right? I think our lowest percentage growth was 50% a couple of years ago, and so every year you're kind of redoing the model. That's what we found. So, hopefully we get to a point where we're kind of more stable. But for me, I found that it's really hard to anticipate the growing pains you'll go into when you're growing at that rate. So.
You just have to react to what ends up being your most biggest fire.
It's hard to create the infrastructure. So like a good example is maybe like our hodgepodge CRM that we use. And I've always gone off of Google spreadsheets because for me it's super easy to manipulate, and I'm very comfortable with Excel, and so I can pretty much customize whatever I need as I find that I need it. And it's a live sheet and all those nice things, and it's collaborative, and you can put conditions on it. So for me, that's worked, but I never anticipate the need. Right. So when I'm not selling every project, there are very different needs in how we organize our files and communicate information. And I wouldn't intuitively architect that when I'm doing everything kind of myself, and it's all in my head. And so that's one of the challenges, that anticipation of what the architect will need. When we were in Chicago, we went to probably one of the most famous architects of all time, and the
Frank Lloyd Wright. Yeah.
Frank Lloyd Wright, and we toured his house. And there were a couple of things that took away. One of my biggest takeaways from that weekend was even Frank Lloyd Wright. You'd go into a room and they'd make a comment of, this room was designed for this, but then he realized that he didn't really like the light. And you've got this amazing mind of an architect, and the reality of planning something out versus hitting the road and then making an adjustment. That was a big impact for me. So. Your question was to talk a little bit about year-over-year growth and percentages, and
I was really curious to see, because you don't just wake up every day and get 50% year-over-year growth. And I've been in business longer than you, but really I've done what you've done for only about a year or two. Actually concentrate on numbers, have a focus, and have goals and metrics and accountability. And my life right now, when I wake up, has a completely different purpose than it did before, when there was always just too much work to handle and you never had enough guys. So what is your thinking? Do you have a goal statement, a something every day you're like, we're going to do? I mean, is it that purposeful, or is it like, no, this is my natural setting, this is just what I do?
So all this, and I'll just kind of prime this conversation with, like, this is a data point, so it's vulnerable to share things, because then, like on internet land, and I've watched a lot of your videos, they're like, that's not how you do it, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Like with you, and you're like a really great painter, and like, I don't like that primer, why aren't you using a different brush? And I'm like, dude, calm down, it's Nick Slavic. But anyway, so this is a data point. This is not like the way to do it at all. I guarantee that I'm doing some things poorly and that someone's doing it better than I am. But I'll tell you what works for me. So what works for me is, so like, I don't know how deep you want to get into it, but like you start with
as deep
like,
as we can.
Okay, you start with like, what's my purpose, right? What's my meaning of life, right? And you start with that. And then from there you create kind of objectives that point to that. And so like in the business, or you could go with the business, right? What is the purpose of your business? Or some objectives that get you there in different categories of your business. So whether it's production, marketing, sales, HR, client interactions. And then from there you create kind of goals. Like what's kind of like a goal that would get you to that objective, and then from there you create short-term goals, or you create long-term goals, medium-term, short-term. Short-term goals turn into action steps, and then action steps turn into scheduling. So for me, it's been kind of an annual recycle of what's important in the business, and then, but there are also seasons where you're just putting your head down, you're executing.
Yeah, there's sometimes you just have to.
So that's like a quick and dirty of how we do it. But we've recently gotten a platform called Traction. It's a pretty popular book for small businesses, especially in Minnesota. It's kind of got some roots where at least it's really caught on here, just in non-painting companies, right?
And it's so funny you mention that, because I was just accepted into an economic gardening program, and the basis of that, I had no idea, is Traction. So actually, over the last, this is something I didn't know we'd talk about, but over the last month, I've implemented Traction 60% in my business. It's super easy because we have a light footprint, but for yours, it's
some good language then.
Man. All right, hold tight. Yeah, this is, my apologies. If you're a homeowner watching this and you're looking for furniture painting tips, today is not going to be that show. This is exactly what I wanted to talk about for a long time, so hold tight. And anybody who has any questions too, let us know. Anything you want to know about business, otherwise, we can even talk paint today too. That's okay.
My wife says hi.
Oh,
she's on the live, so hi Peggy.
Good to see
you.
So why don't we talk about, I had a couple questions in mind. I think we'll hold them off till later. Why don't a 30-plus man painting company, what does your day look like? When are we waking up? What are we doing? What are we up to?
Yeah, so it's vulnerable, right? Because I feel like, so we grew a lot this year. I actually changed over my entire corporate staff at the end of last year.
Wow.
And so, like my production manager and my sales guy.
That's huge.
So it's basically there's three of us, and they both turned over at the end of last year.
That's huge.
So I was going into this year with the mindset of let's do negative 15% growth, and then we had positive
damage control.
Like it'd be really great if we got close to where we are before.
Yeah. But with all that, how could you possibly?
I lost two high performers, right? But it was kind of not. We made the best of it, and we grew 70+% this year.
God,
so I would say that.
That's
so
awesome.
My day-to-day that I did this year was kind of whatever it took.
Yeah,
and I'd say it's vulnerable because it's not what I anticipate I'll be doing next year.
Yeah.
But for me, in the summer, it's basically I get here every day at 5 o'clock.
Yep.
And I know you're no stranger to hard work, but
well, especially in the summer, you basically have to say, we're fortunate here that we have two distinct seasons. We got 6 months inside, 6 months outside. Come October 31st, I almost do this.
Our wife's side.
Exactly.
That's our wife's side.
Yeah, you reintroduce yourself to your kids, and then you're like, oh, now I can do some businessy stuff for myself.
Yeah.
We can do marketing plan.
Yep.
But yeah, just like you almost have to just take it.
Yeah, and it's kind of that conscious decision of you can start at 7, but what does your business quality look like if you sacrifice 2 hours of sleep every day?
Yeah.
And it's amazing, and you can tie that into whatever. What does your personal life look different if you wake up 2 hours a day earlier?
Well, and the interesting thing is if you think about your 24-hour day, break it off into 3/8. You sleep for 8, you work for 8. I think most people do a poor job of
which is wasted usually.
Exactly. It's like, listen,
purposeful.
If you could do work, if you could do family, if you could do something purposeful and hobby-ish, that would be great. I imagine a lot of that is just frittered away. So I made this bargain almost 15 years ago that I was going to take that third 8 and basically say half goes to my family, half goes to business. Yeah. And you get enough time. You got weekend. You got 2 of your 7 days off to do fun stuff.
We could get very passionate about this if you want.
But
I would, back to your question, it's like a normal day. Because I'm usually doing like whatever it takes, 5 to 7. 7 o'clock hits, and like I would get, on some days I get 100 phone calls a day between production and marketing and sales.
That's something that surprised me because going from 10 people, I could go without my phone for 7 hours during the day and still do fine. But you told me in Chicago that sometimes before 10 a.m., you get 100 phone calls.
Well, through the day, I'll get 100.
Through
10 o'clock, I'll have like 30 or 40 or 50.
Yeah. But you'll get 100 phone calls during a day.
Yeah.
Like, and it's interesting, as you think about the size of these businesses and you think, oh man, you got so many trucks, you got so many people. You never think what comes along with that. You know what I mean? And I don't think a lot of people.
And hopefully this is helpful if people are listening. But just being vulnerable, like that's not my ideal, right? The fact that I haven't figured out a phone answering service, I haven't figured out. We don't have an admin person yet. Yeah. That's kind of that's one of our rocks for this quarter, this upcoming quarter.
Yep.
I know you speak the VTO language.
I do now.
An admin person, kind of that can help take phone calls. So these are not like braggadocious things. These are very kind of somewhat, and it's internet land, so.
Yeah. Well, but it's interesting because something that I long got over on this stuff is that whole part of being vulnerable, because we naturally found each other because this is what we are interested in, and we feel vulnerable about this, but 99% of the painting world, the 150,000 painting contractors in the United States, probably half of them don't care. They're just painters because they're painters. The other half are, everybody's a 1 to 3 man shop. What you have is the 0.3 of 1% of the top, if you talk numbers and size and everything else. So you feel very vulnerable, but you figured out a lot of things that 99% of the other painters haven't. But it's that drive that's always interesting that keeps.
Yeah, and I think it's a mindset of we're young too, right?
Absolutely,
it's a very young company, and you always want to be. It's like so personally, I'm always like in my personal life and in the business. I don't expect or put the weight that we're going to be the type of company that will be 7 years from now.
Yeah,
like that'd be unrealistic. So you think 7 years from now, it's kind of that reverse thought process of it, but. In 7 years, like visualize what you're going to be, either personally or in your business 7 years from now. And it's only naturally that you're not that right now, but are you moving in that direction? Are you moving towards that? Yep. So I want to hammer through your question. So one morning, you do whatever it takes. Yeah. Phone starts ringing off the hook because I haven't properly organized, or we are basing our proposal template off of a template when I used to do all the bids and manage the jobs. So there's communication misses. Which we've been working on this winter to get a more streamlined process. And then I go and visit some sites in the middle of the day, help problem solve, troubleshoot, do some bids. And then if I can get back to the office before the end of the day and hammer out kind of the organization of the day, kind of get all the information transferred to where it needs to go, that's a win. And then when I get home, I'm usually pretty good at shutting off. And I think my wife would somewhat validate that, at least from actively working. Yep. But because I know I'll be getting up in the morning. But that's the answer. Like a typical day is it's start early. It's kind of you're almost like in a war or in a battle kind of throughout the day, and you've got your generals and your field commanders, and you're trying to keep the information flowing. Probably in communication and information management is a big part of the day.
So one thing that I've been interested in recently, and anybody who follows along on social media, if you've been following me long enough, like every month to 3 months, I because of the growth that we're both experiencing, mine at obviously a way different level, but you come into these questions that again you couldn't plan for. You just have to react to them, and then you start asking everybody else, what should we do about this? And right now, I think this month I tried to solve how much of my day do I actually plan out versus how much do I leave for reacting? And do you actively think about, do you schedule every second of your day? Because you have after looking at your spreadsheets, you seem like a guy that could easily go by the 1 minute increment during the day and schedule. Do you leave everything open? Do you schedule certain things? How does that work?
What I found has worked well is so you do hard scheduling, and hard scheduling is based off of your your projects or so you get your short-term goals. They're based off your action steps. Yep. So things that have to happen at certain times. But then you can schedule kind of soft time. Yeah. And then you have a tier of priorities that need to get done. So here's my soft time. I don't have a specific thing tackled for that, but here's my list of soft priorities, time lists. Yeah. And that's what's worked well for me. I have a lot I could improve on my task management, but that's what's worked well for me.
So that's you keep and again before kind of going through the traction process, I would always have I think I got it right here. This is what I used to keep. It used to be one of these, and I would sit here, and over the course of 3 sheets of paper, I would first brainstorm, and I would keep this with me all day. Prioritize, I would move it over, and then I would say, okay, out of the first 10, let's go. What needs to be done now? This and that. I move some things to a to-do list. This is just something I've done for 10 years, but after that, I've actually done something similar where you schedule in. I got a 2-hour block of time. this is for my item list. And I'll start with number one that I thought was most important, and I've been way more productive with that sort of thing.
I've met some phenomenally productive people, because you're talking about the skill of priority management, which is a coachable skill, and you can learn about
Absolutely,
it.
yeah.
And, there are times where I've done it really well, and I know people who do it phenomenally well.
Yeah.
And it's you're hitting on some of the key components, basically, of priority management.
Yeah. And it's been great, because before it used to a lot of reaction, but now, and then I think a big part of my day was always, okay, you're just gonna do this all day, and then when time would allow, you'd get to this. But now actually scheduling in some soft time and saying, I got a 2-hour block. I need to start working on this.
And time is kind of like, well, it's like money, right? So there's that saying, but it's also like, if you're not purposeful with your time, you're gonna achieve that.
Yep, exactly.
And it's the same thing with your money.
Yeah.
And so, like, if you're not purposeful with your money, it's going to get spent one way or another in an unpurposeful way.
Yep,
so
that's true.
So your time and your money both kind of look like that, where you talk about the 8 hours a day that most people have, and it's usually not purposeful. It's not driving towards a goal that they would reflectively look back at how they spent that time and validate, that's how I wanted to spend that time because it reflects this goal of mine or this personal value of mine. It's usually a default. And there's a lot of default. There's a lot of default. TV is a big default.
A lot of thoughtless 8 hours.
Yeah, a lot of thoughtless 8 hours.
Which again is not the worst thing on earth, but then you can't complain about not getting things done. You can't have the other side then too. So which is huge.
Yeah.
A question that I'm also wrestling with right now is, when is the first time you have somebody working for your business that doesn't physically paint during the day? So we're talking admin, marketing, salesperson, production manager. You've had this amazing scale of growth. You've probably implemented that early, yes?
Yeah.
So at what stage? And I'll let you get to it. Sorry for interrupting, but how many people? What were you doing? And things like, if you could just give some, it doesn't have to be exact, but I love it. What I'm trying to figure out with this question, and a lot of people have helped me with this, is how many painter in a one-man company, when you basically do the sales, do the books, do the marketing, production manage, how many painters can you have in the field?
Yeah.
And do that?
Well,
did you even test that, or did you just get somebody?
So I'll tell you my story, and I'd love to dig into that question. So my story was, we were going to have our first kid. And so I was like, okay. And I had a business coach at the time, and he had mentioned, you'll never regret taking too much time off for your first kid.
Yeah.
So I hired probably the hardest. So I hired a salesperson the first, and that was probably what I was best at. But I didn't want to do sales.
How many people were in the company at the time when you did that?
Probably only 7, maybe 7 or 8 guys. So we weren't that big. This was like, I think this was 2014 that we did that. So I hired a sales guy because my daughter was born in the summer, and it was a hard time to not do bids for 2 weeks. And so it didn't, I don't know if he's listening. I'd say it turned out okay.
Less than ideal?
Less than ideal, right?
Yeah.
So it just wasn't, it didn't turn out the best.
Yeah.
Right? He did fine. He definitely filled the stopgap.
Yeah.
But it was just funny. It's just I've read your threads, and there's a guy out east I talked to, and then there's like a really smart guy who helps you with this process called Art.
Yeah.
And then I don't want to
Snarzik.
I don't want to butcher his last name.
Art
Snarzik. Yeah.
Art, I think I scheduled Art for an Ask a Painter. He may be on next week.
Yeah,
so
I'd be tuning in. He seems so like that's how you do it well. So for me, I've read all your threads on your videos and comments, but I hired my salesperson out first. I've heard that that's usually the last thing that a business owner, kind of owner-operator would hire out.
When you ask those people, yes, that seems to be what it is.
But that's what worked for me. And then, that happened, and then the next year, and so things changed. But if you're asking what size, I think you'd basically run through the numbers, right?
Yep.
So you'd say, every painter that you carry year-round generates roughly $100,000 of revenue based off of a gross charge rate and number of hours in a year. And so you'd say, what volume, and then you'd say, what are you going to pay this non-painter person?
Yep.
And then what percentage of overhead can you afford in your business based off of your gross margin?
Yep.
And so you'd kind of work backwards from those numbers depending on your productivity per person, your gross margin, what you want your net to be after overhead.
Mm-hmm.
That's how I would kind of look at what size. That's been a common question.
Now that's super helpful, and I knew I'd get that from you, but most people don't have those numbers. So I would always couch it in how many guys in the field? And
Yeah.
and it's
And I'd say if it's year round, I don't know. I would talk to Art.
yeah, exactly.
But I would say probably 7 to 8 to 10 is
Yeah.
usually what most companies can handle.
yeah, that's what it seemed to be before.
I've also heard. I'm just excited, so I'm cutting you off.
No,
I've heard
please.
there's like a dead zone between 0.7 and 1.2 million.
Yep.
So what I've heard is, whether you're doing 700,000, and it's not. I mean, this is not biblical truth, but it's like anywhere between like 0.7 and 1.2. You're in a dead zone. So if you do 0.7, you're making just as much money as you do in a 1.2 because of the infrastructure that's required to move beyond a 0.7.
There's unused capacity, or maybe you
you don't really see your
capacity.
return on that past that point. So I'd say at some point you like toe the line. You need to make that kind of that commitment.
You need to make a big jump. You can't just add one more person.
And you see
need to
multiple
go.
tiers and different sizes.
And something interesting that you brought up in Chicago, and again, for the last 10 years that I've owned my business, I've felt all this, and in my mind it's all there, but I haven't actually found somebody else this intimately to talk with it about. You mentioned plateaus in painting companies, and I've thought about that every day since Chicago. Thinking back about all the companies I know, my own company, seeing where people are, and you're absolutely right. Statistically speaking, again, this isn't infallible, but there are some areas where if you have 9, you should just have 14 people, give or take. And when we talk about people, it's a super simple, sort of dull way of talking about what you should do. There's a whole bunch of numbers in there you can mess with to make or break things. But it seems like there's plateaus, and that's the first one, and that's the one that most of us encounter sooner or later. Where do you think the next plateau would be in a company?
Yeah. So there are companies that know this and they work with this. I mean, this is their niche, helping companies get past those plateaus.
Like consultants and
things.
things.
Consultants and coaching companies. But intuitively, I would feel like once you start managing managers, that's kind of the next step. So you can run a pretty good, profitable, company with your owner-operator, your admin, your production manager, and then 1 to 2 salespeople. But at some point, you would scale to where you need a manager to manage salespeople, and you need a manager to manage admin people. So you've got kind of that next tier of here's your kind of lean corporate overhead staff. And at some point, you get enough of that corporate head where they multiply their roles that you need to add a management layer. That intuitively would seem like the next kind of plateau step.
And then you have to you would work backwards and then say, okay, well now how many people we have to add to that? Most people, I think the biggest problem is they just add one guy at a time, and over the course of 5 years, they're almost like working through trench warfare, trying to find that next plateau. And it feels like a lot of people get frustrated with that.
Yeah, probably pros and cons to different models, right? So it's frustrating to take leaps and bounds. Nothing's easy from what I found. So whether you're doing it one guy at a time, and at some point you're kind of towing the line, and when you grow, you can. I've actually talked on a what was it called, where you get the PDCA guys together. They're similar company sizes on a webinar.
Oh, the roundtable.
The roundtables.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So,
those things are amazing.
So So I was on a roundtable with the PDCA, and somebody asked about growth, and I said something like, you have to work hard, harder than you normally would to get past this growth curve. And then you need to be creative and use technology to try and expand your current abilities. And then someone who's really smart. It was a lady who owns probably a very awesome company. It was it sounds like she had an MBA, and she was like, well, you should do this and this, and you should really know your numbers and have a controlled growth model over the next 3 years. So there are different ways to do it. What I'm trying to say is whether you're doing it person by person, you're going to have a weird challenge of when do you take that leap, or you take the leap and then you kind of discover your infrastructure and abilities. So either way, it's challenging. Would be my
probably the most helpful thing for people to know would be that there are plateaus. So if you have 7 people and you go to 10 and you're not really feeling a 40% growth, just know that you may be doing everything right. You may just have unused capacity. You may have a big rig truck with a 52-foot trailer, and you may only have 40 feet of that filled. You may have this extra stuff you're hauling along. All you got to do is pack a little more in there, and that might make up the rest. It might not, though.
I think that's probably one of the more powerful perspective pieces is validating that something is challenging. So if you have someone that's like, I grew from 7 people to 11 people. I'm not making any more money.
Yeah.
This
And their basis, I'm going back to three people. I'm going back to three people. That's it. I had way more time, you know?
Yeah, it's supposed to validating like that is a challenge. And it's not surprising that you're feeling that way. Here's why that is.
Yeah. And it's amazing because I've always done dives into numbers. I've never met anybody. I mean, even in financially based businesses, I don't know that there's a lot of people who do what you do for the actual business, but I find great comfort in the numbers a lot of the times. When you actually break it down, this last year I had a huge epiphany because I hired between 12 and 15 people. My company went, like you, I had a big outlay, a purge of people, and I basically rebuilt a company into a 10-man company from nothing. And I thought, I have all these people. It doesn't feel like a 10-man company. Well, I just did a 10-year financial analysis of my company. I found out, oh, okay, if you actually break it down by the hours and how many full-time equivalents you have, that's not really the case all the time because we're so seasonal and things like that. So it's like I was actually performing way better than I thought I was. But if I hadn't looked at some basic numbers, you would think, well, screw it. This 10-man company isn't even worth it. I'm going back to, doing this stuff. So I find great comfort in that. And like you said, commiserating with other people. Like, there's plateaus. It's all right.
Perspective and that culture piece, like for us, so last fall was really challenging when I had that turnover, but ended up being like a blessing in disguise because it gave us a chance to reset our culture. And this year, I was sharing with you, like it's been the most profitable year. We grew by the largest percentage and largest revenue growth. So sometimes
after losing 60% of your management team.
It was basically down to me. Right, and that's a very scary place to be.
Well, especially when you're looking at the infrastructure that you've
already committed to.
Exactly, and you have a young family, and it's not like you can just say, well, hey, honey, I'm sorry, we had a couple people leave. Now I'm working 20 hours a day. You just can't do that either.
Yeah.
You know?
So I just wanted to validate changing over some staff at a point when you're growing is a scary thing, but it can be a nice time to reset a new culture that's needed as you go into the next stage of your business.
And luckily, on a smaller scale, that happened to me, and thank God it did. It let me wipe the whiteboard clean, and you start over, and all of a sudden you can implement stuff you haven't before, and so it's something that you and I probably would not have planned on.
Right.
And
you
in the end,
don't
it's
want
better.
to go through it. Yeah.
No, you wouldn't say like, you know what? I should take my 3 best guys and just on one day, let's all just get rid of them. And I'm sure something good will come in.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll see about it.
That's awesome. What else interests you? I mean, obviously, when you're in growth mode, you're not. You do have ancillary goals, but a lot of it is like you said. You're in the canoe. You're going down the rapids. Much of your time is spent just sort of like, this is awesome. Let's just keep doing this. Head down, and you're just like, I'm not looking for problems right now because with 50 to 70% growth, this works, something will come up, let's just do it. What else, what's your big goal for 2018? What's something like that?
Yeah, so 2018 is funnels and friction. So I've been a funnel, I'm a very high performing funnel.
And when you say funnel, what do you mean?
Yeah, so funnel is like a lot of tasks in the business have to go through me. That I haven't processed in a process. I haven't laid that out in a process, what those tasks require.
Yeah.
It's kind of, you call it like intuitive to me.
Yeah.
Or all the information and the processes are in my head. So there's a lot of funnels that which are natural, I think. It would be probably abnormal to create a process for every thing that somebody does when you have
answering
not
a phone call,
grown out of that stage.
Yeah.
So getting out of funnels, which is really creating processes, and then friction is mostly in our. So for us, the biggest friction point has been sales to production.
Yeah.
And you've got basically the work order in between those. And so tightening up that process is something that's not needed when I go and sell the project, and then I go kick the project off, and then I go inspect it at the end, and then I write the invoice. Right? There's not a lot of communication that needs to happen when I'm talking to myself. It's all centralized.
But now you have a few layers in between.
Now there's layers, and so the projectors, like we have, I told you I'm getting a nicer projector. It's going to be 4K. It'll be awesome.
This guy's already improving on his thing that nobody else in our industry has already. That's insane.
So it's going to be really cool. If you want to, So in general, like if you want to be impressed, come back in 3 months. If you want to see something being built, be
Yeah,
here
for
now.
you.
That's a good philosophy.
If you want to be impressed, obviously nothing we've seen today is impressive at all. If you want to be impressed, we'll come back and show you even higher resolution screens. So,
but anyways, we put up our proposal on these projectors, and we had us all sitting around it. Okay, so first we went through every single job. I think you were on the roundtable call when I was talking about this.
I think so, yep.
And we basically went through every single job and said, what was
something... you were having your kind of year-end wrap-up meeting, and you were kind of going
So how do you figure out your priorities for 2018?
Yeah.
So we went through every single job, said what were some things that went well and didn't go well, and then basically just dumped on 400 plus projects. And it took us multiple days and multiple hours. We did that, and then we categorized that information. And so it was very interesting to see, this many categories are, pressure washing info was unclear, or paint order was unclear, scope was unclear. And then so the categories that I created were like work order, unclarity, or carpenter was not skilled to the level he needed to be, or we didn't have, had a product deficiency. Mm-hmm. And then you subcategorize those. So it took feelings of, gosh, there's a lot of things we could improve on from this last year, and made them facts. And so you took qualitative data, put it into categories, and now it's quantitative data. Yep. It's now a number. And so then we basically went through those numbers and said, well, here's the things we want to prioritize going next year. And the top one was work order clarity for us.
Oh, okay.
So going in, we started with let's get a head start. Let's start working on it now. So we put the work orders, we put our proposals up on the projector and talked through, what. So for us, getting PDCA lingo in there.
Oh, yeah.
Using some kind of baseline standard. So going through redoing your proposal, and then how is that translating to a work order? For us, it happens automatically because it's a live G sheet. And so all that information just shifts right over. And then how does that get translated to a paint order? So for us, what we did is we kind of reversed what did our work order need to look like, what did our paint order need to look like, and with that information, what does our proposal need to have? So that's like a friction point when I talk about funnels and friction in 2018. Those are my two biggest goals. We've set a really low, our growth target is 15%. So you have to set some kind of a target to base appropriate spending off of from an overhead standpoint.
It's tough to plan off 70% growth.
Yeah, so this would be, I think our lowest growth percentage was 50% a couple of years ago. So 15% is a very low growth target, but I think I've heard other companies doing it, they take a step back and then they just propel after that. I'd be very happy with where the business is at, even at 15% growth.
Absolutely, yeah. But
that's where our target is, and it's really based off of funnels and friction.
What else are some things that you feel need tightening up in your business?
Yeah, that's probably the friction piece. Is probably the flow of information to different people is the biggest piece to tighten up.
And one specific example of that, would it be as simple as we were supposed to paint the gutters and we didn't because the work order was 50% unclear, or is it more macro than that?
My production manager is in the Dominican Republic right now, and he would love this video because that's exactly. So for me, when I estimate projects, my two biggest misses that he gave me, good constructive feedback on.
Oh yeah, because you're out there selling jobs too, yeah.
Yep. Is we're missing if the downspouts and gutters are getting painted.
Oh, interesting.
And we're missing which doors get painted. So as a salesperson, I was always like, well, it's intuitive. Just if they should get painted, paint them. If not, or I'll write doors. And it's like, does this mean the storm door? Does it mean the garage door?
Yeah.
Here's a metal door. Here's a wood door. Or we're doing both sides of the storm doors. And so that's an example of dialing in that detail. I have a phenomenal production manager. He's got his biggest strengths are he's very emotionally intelligent and he's got a great attitude.
Awesome.
So he's a rock star, but a lot of his time was spent problem solving the deficiencies of a work order, which is a very valuable thing for him to do, but probably not the highest use of his skill set.
But it could be solved quicker in a different phase.
So a lot of his time, a lot of my calls were, hey, it's 7:30 in the morning, we've got the paint here, are we painting the doors? I probably got that call, or which doors are we painting? It just says doors. Or another example is, like a deficiency that I would often do is add-ons. So I would add on, an option to paint the garage. And I would say garage. But what does that mean? Are we painting the trim on the garage? Are we painting the siding only? Which doors are we painting again? Are we painting 3 sides? Are we painting all 4 sides? So that clarity is probably the biggest thing that we can tighten up going into 2018.
So way more detail, because when you're handing it to somebody who hasn't gone through the process of looking at the house, figuring out the price for things, talking with the homeowner, that's where and I think it sounds like that's a huge problem in most businesses.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, because I ever since we talked in Chicago, you know, this year has been a quest for perspective for me. And the biggest growth in my business has because I've had data points from other contractors, and you figure out what you need to work on and what you need to worry about. I forget where I was going now.
Yeah. Oh, I don't know where you're going, but there's just the opportunity is endless for things that we could tighten up. Yeah, is the way I feel about it, and I've got kind of this dual perspective, right? There's a perspective like our work orders are trash, right? Yeah. We're bad. Yeah. We're a terrible company. I'm a bad business owner. You know, my guys are having a challenge because of this. Yeah. Or there's like we were never farming our client base. You know, we're a 5-year-old company. So I'm like, oh my gosh, we're a multi-million-dollar company, doesn't farm our client base. We're terrible. Like, I'm the worst business owner ever. Like we're just a bad company that you don't do that. Yeah. So you have that like perspective, but then you also take this other perspective of, you know, we've got very phenomenal growth. Yep. You know, we've won multiple awards. Yep. You know, on a national scale, on a state scale, and then a city local scale. Mm-hmm. You know, our margins are good. We're a healthy company. We've got overall good feedback. If we can tighten up these things, where do we propel to? Yeah. So that's that perspective of like there are things that you can always improve on, but if you're currently here, where are you going to get to if you tighten those things up?
Exactly. And knowing that you're outperforming other companies in certain things is very valuable, because
which is an interesting perspective. I keep cutting you off, but I get excited.
And go right ahead. I remember what I was talking about, so go ahead.
Okay, I was gonna say, like, I had no idea. I always assumed, so this spring I bought a couple of Jeeps. Yeah. And I had just driven like my Hyundai Elantra with a wonky bumper on it and the magnets, and I would go to the paint store. I'd be like, gosh, these guys have nice trucks. I'm just like a humble bumble. Yeah. And I'm just hashtag humble painter. And I just embrace I'm just a humble painter. And then you've got like these guys. But then like I had no idea that I thought every company was 4 million to 8 million in the metro. Exactly. I was like, but there are not many residential. There are your industrial and your commercial companies, and then there are multi-housing companies that do multi-housing shops. But there aren't many, from the data points I've gotten from our vendors, there aren't many that are our size. No, never. And people marvel at me for having more than 5 people, and for having what you have. I mean, that's like it's interesting to know that. So when you experience a little bit of anxiety about your work, you're like, oh, that's the good anxiety. There's the other side of anxiety where your phone's not ringing, you know, and that's the other side. So basically, what I was going to say before is that this last year has been a quest for perspective, and I've thought so long and hard about perspective, not only from our industry but from other places too. So you think, oh, this job's so hard, this and that, and you think there must be, what's the upper end of this? You know, what can we make? What can we do? How should we spend our time? And you get to realize, like, you know, a plumber comes to your house and their base rate for charging out their guys is way higher than a painter. Yeah. You know, and you're just like, oh, okay, so there are some industry confines, and I think with knowledge and thoughtfulness, you can push that. But it's also comforting to know that there seems to be an upper limit unless you break into some other things or size. And we're dealing in a business that has so many variables. If you were a factory making pop cans, no variables. The raw stuff comes in, the cans go out. We have us, which are wild cards. We have employees, which are wild cards. We have homeowners, which are wild cards. And then every house we do is different. Yeah. You could not create a sort of worse, scenario for things going wrong. If you want to have process improvement, if you want to have, you've turned your painting business into a very large math problem in a very interesting way, because this is almost an unquantifiable thing at something. There are so many variables. If you just had the pop can factory, it's what comes in, what goes out, can we speed that up? Which is interesting, because my guys would be laughing, right? But I always talk about, what is that equation, right? What is the equation towards a successful project? And it's like, you get so many points. If the salesperson can all be there when the project kicks off, you get like 4 points, right? And you get to you get to 100 points to get a strong project.
So you're actually trying a way to grade a lot of stuff.
And so like someone I think I was watching a YouTube video on something unrelated probably, but they said, it's really hard with people to know all the variables. And so it's really hard to form equations based off people, but you can get pretty close. And some way smart enough.
I love that though. I love that you've created, you've quantified it.
What are the points you need to have a successful project?
But it doesn't mean you shouldn't quantify anything. I think you should quantify the hell out of everything.
Yeah, you should quantify as much as you can. And I'm sure someone smart will figure out like what is the math equation towards a happy client. Yeah. And you could even base it off of their information, right? What is their age range? What is their, whatever.
At least there would be something. Yeah. And then you find that personality defects create outliers here and there. Yep. And those create the things that keep you up at night. But perspective this last year has been absolutely everything. And I'm sorry, guys. I've
got questions here.
Absolutely. I'm so sorry, guys, that I've been neglecting questions. But I think maybe now we're going to say, holy cow, we got a lot of stuff going on here today. Jason, maybe actually, you know what? I'll scroll through here. I don't want to miss anybody. And then if you have a favorite question, maybe we can start answering those. And you cut me off whenever you need to get back to your stuff. Okay. All right, Tyler, thank you for watching. Parker Johnson, he's an apprentice of mine. He's actually coming home on college vacation this next week and working. So, Casey Palmer, Christopher Riggins. Christopher's an interesting guy if you don't know him. He's from down south. If I understand his company right, he does 100% subcontractors down there, and he's a young progressive contractor too. So you'll probably meet him at a PDCA event. Super interesting guy to talk to. Tim and Amy Lemke, thank you for watching. Thiago. Tim Marcellet, past apprentice of mine as well. Naomi, thank you for watching. Guilherme, he's down in, he's one of the big shot painters down there in Brazil. Arnold Shimoda, Armando, thank you for watching. Guilherme, thank you very much. Dean, Joe Haker. Joe runs an online show for designers. Joe is actually a pretty interesting guy. He designs lighting fixtures for Vegas hotels and stuff like that. So kind of a cool guy. Russ Perry, thank you for watching as always. Joe Shriver, thank you as well. Frederico, there's the PDCA. Hi to you too. Rusty, thank you for watching. Jesse, thank you for watching as well. Danielle, our favorite Minnesota painters. We're just happy to be inside staying warm. Paul Rafferty, thank you for watching. Ryan Schaust, Rob Haddad, Calvin Musel, thank you for watching. Terry Liuski, Frederico, PDCA, please contact me. All right, we're going worldwide here. Hey, Russ Perry, thank you for watching again. Rob Grant, Emily Ann, thank you for watching as well. Gustavo, frequent watcher. Jenny Stika, Dustin, there he is. Awesome show so far. Wish I could stay and finish. I'll have to tune in later. Love seeing the others streamline their businesses. Dustin was just a guest. You watch it? I'm slowly collecting like baseball cards. Some of my favorite painting contractors in the United States, and Dustin was a guy. And well, yeah, I suppose we will claim him too. But Dustin is a super impressive guy, and I love the best piece of perspective I've got this last year is that. Number one, nobody's got this solved. There's not like, oh my God, if you just do this. And number two, personality dictates what type of business you have and how you approach that business. And I love it that you can take a guy like you, a guy like me, a guy like Dustin, a whole bunch of these young guys that are technically all about, on paper, on your equations, we're probably all about the same. We both come up with three things that are completely different than anything else out there. And we're all still happy, we're enthusiastic about our businesses. And, you know, even you and me, we're not that far away. We've probably been on the same jobs before. Yeah. Couldn't be happier to talk to each other about it because we realize, especially in a market like this, the perspective is, my God, if you could take 100 guys right now and staff your company, and I could take 100 and staff mine, we'd still be here having this conversation.
You probably hit point, less than 1% of market share.
Absolutely. And
in residential repaint.
Absolutely. That's exactly it. So Dustin, awesome to have you on, and I'm slowly creating my sort of the group of the favorite painters, and I really want but Christian Militello, you, Dustin, so interesting. We're all at sort of odd stages of business, and we're all going through stuff, which is interesting because nobody's just like, oh yeah, this is what I do. Yeah. Everybody's like we're all like on our horses sort of doing this. And so I would like to continue a lot of these conversations on Ask a Painter here. So Deborah, I'm impressed by your technical and artistic abilities. Absolutely. Jeff Morrow, Russ Simon, thank you for watching. A good phone number for PDCA. Dan Ross, all right, Dan, thanks for watching. I look up to Dan very much in the painting world. Frederico, Louis Littlechild from over the pond there. Kay Traxler, Steve Jurek, Russ Perry. Interesting, you don't like socializing, networking side of the business. Is hiring someone for that part of your business something you'd recommend? Or would that be a step? Yeah, it cuts me off. A step to take. So do you, we actually talked for like 2 minutes about this.
At a certain level.
So are you going to have to hire a personnel or a ambassador?
Yeah, so Chet and Hoken, who we met, are way better than I am at socializing. So they go to like the NARI events. And
so they're the
like
people.
Yeah, so like
people
I can do
persons.
it, and people love to have the Jason Paris of Paris Painting is here, and like it's good, but they're just better than I am.
Yeah.
On large scales, I can do one-on-one interactions. I'm not the biggest fan of big groups of people.
Yeah.
Like the state fair is my nightmare.
Yeah. I hear you.
So yeah, to his question though, I'd say hire out what you're not the best at, what your weak point is, and then at what level. We talked about that a little bit earlier.
Yeah. And what advice would you give to somebody who absolutely loves every bit of it? They love the marketing, they love the accounting, they love the metrics, they love the production, they love to paint. They do that. Then what? When they want to grow a business?
Yeah, so that's you, right?
Maybe.
You're good at everything.
Again, influencing
very humbling
people and
being in
winning.
the same state as Slavic.
We're both so passive aggressive when we talk about each other. Yeah.
But I would say that's a great question. I would say maybe so you can't do everything well and grow.
Yeah. And pretty soon you just run out of time.
Yeah, you run out of time. But it would be maybe you want to be coaching every area of your business. If you're really that passionate about every part of the business, maybe you want to grow to where you can coach every part of your business. You'd also look at the available labor.
And by
pool.
coach you mean outside of my business,
either
or within, or even within the business.
I feel like both. I was talking about inside your business,
but
you'd probably be really good at coaching outside of your business. But I would say now I lost my train of thought. But it was, you want to, because you can't do everything. I lost it.
Yeah, it's so basically, if you don't mind doing all the functions of a business, it doesn't take you that long. You're fairly effective at it. You should probably just find somebody to take something off of your table that's easily replicable.
I was going to say, look at the available labor pool. So I've heard like sales can be a harder thing to hire out for some companies.
Yeah.
Right? Or whatever is more challenging, maybe you do that. So like you're probably a phenomenal, and we talked about this at PDCA, a phenomenal trainer.
Yeah.
And that's a hard skill set to have, is someone who is knowledgeable in painting, but can also train other people, has those soft skills as well.
Yep.
And so maybe that's a good part that you don't want to quite outsource yet.
Yep.
Or like for me, I'm not the most knowledgeable painter.
Yeah.
The guys that I hire know much more than I do, so they're actually better when it comes to those application things. So look at what are you good at, what's the available labor pool, when you're talking about, if this question was what do you hire out? Something that
I've not vocalized before to any other sort of people in our industry is that I don't know if I've worked myself into a corner or not. I'm very.
I think you're closed-minded on that. I've thought about this.
I think I am too, but I when everybody says, "Oh yeah, you just hire a salesman," and then immediately in my mind, I have cold sweats at 2 a.m. thinking about, oh, so the only point of contact anybody will have with my beautifully fantastic business is going to be some stranger who hasn't lived my life. Maybe hasn't even painted.
Yeah.
How could that possibly work?
Yeah.
Theoretically, asking for a friend.
Man, I could. You want me to ask? Do you want to talk about this now?
Absolutely.
I could talk to you about this for hours. So I've thought about you.
I stay up at 2 a.m. thinking about this.
Yeah. So I've thought about you quite a bit. So first of all, I think at that PDCA conference in October, those guys said there's a lot of value to staying small. You talk about your quality of life. What do you really want? And these guys are making
for certain personalities.
Yeah, and they're making good money, right?
Absolutely.
But if you want to grow because you like the challenge of business, like, man, I'd say you need to be open minded to it. So like the sense is, who's that plumbing guy that's really big? or Dean's Air Conditioning or something. There's this guy,
one of the big local fellas
in the metro to Minnesota. It's like Dean's, and I guarantee you, Dean never answers the phone. Dean never goes on a sales call because I see he's probably got like 20 plus trucks. But what he does have is he has his culture imprint on every part of the company. So if I were in your shoes and it was Nick Slavic painting, and you're like, hey, like Nick's not gonna be coming out there, but Nick has been involved in the culture imprint of the company. Like it's Paris painting, so most people think, and no one knows it's my name. Like, oh, that's cool.
Which is nice.
It's got alliteration. It's Paris. It's painting. It's a little fun.
It's catchy,
but it's like Jason Paris. Well, doesn't go to every bid. I go to quite a few of them, but I'm very hands-on with my salespeople and training them in and creating that culture imprint. I'm not physically painting every site. Just like you've already gotten over the hurdle of you're not painting every site, but you've got your cultural and personal imprint on those painters. At some point, if you wanted to, you maybe wouldn't have to check on every job site, but you want to have your personal and cultural imprint on those.
So you do work on the macro level to make sure the micro level is then taken care of.
Yeah, it's still it's got it's a Nick Slavic company.
Yeah,
it's not a Nick Slavic hand on a paintbrush.
Yeah,
but it's a Nick Slavic company, and I think you still have you have a large influence on that.
Here's where I argue with you.
Good.
For over 40 years, maybe even close to 50 now, the Slavic name has been known in my town for this. And up until 4 years ago, there was never any employees, either with my old family business or with this new one now. So in the past, my face, my work, people have seen me on the job site. I know this is a hurdle that can be gone over. I'm just wondering, again, perspective. I wonder how much of a corner I painted myself into, and how long I have to wait for that paint to dry to then hop back over it.
Yeah, I'm not trying to talk you out of it.
No,
but it's a cool
but this is how I learn. I argue with people exactly the thoughts that keep me up at night, and I hope you talk me out of it.
I love batting around thoughts. So the thing I'd come against you is I don't think you've painted yourself in a corner except in your head.
Yeah,
like you're probably right. You have a mental herd that like, okay, if I'm not out there physically involved on every site anymore, people are going to think certain things.
Yeah.
But what if they think that Nick is really entrepreneurial and like he's not on every job site, but he's very passionate about having his imprint on his company,
creating jobs for young people, giving them good, well-paying work. And,
and like, man, we could get deep on this.
Please do.
But like, I wouldn't worry too much what people think about you in some respects.
Yeah.
I know that
even in my small town.
So that's super important to you. But like, we can offline this too. But like, what's your identity?
Yeah.
Like, who are you outside of what people think about you?
Yeah.
And how much stock, like, let's say public opinion and perspective changed. Would you still do the things that you value just because other people thought they weren't? So what's about? So you
that's
really want
to. Man.
So get into the core of like, what do you value? What's important to you? So like a good man, I actually don't want to use that example because it's very political.
Oh no, absolutely.
But you could use
whatever.
Like let's say you love red shirts, right? You love red shirts. It's in your family heritage.
Yeah.
It's very important to you, not just because of heritage, but you believe it symbolizes something. Yeah. And suddenly the world feels like blue shirts are the only way to go. Are you going to change your identity and what you believe in just because other people think that? Or are you going to find a way to show what a red shirt means to you and you're passionate about it?
Well, the answer to that is absolutely yes.
And let your actions kind of be that message.
Yeah.
And so that's the So
there may be a period where the shirts are switching now, and I just need to, like we talked about plateaus, don't give up on it. Just know that you're in either a turn or a plateau and work your way through it.
What you're working through is you've got head games.
Yeah.
And so, and I this is what I think. I'm not a philosopher. I'm not like a psychologist.
You're 100% right.
But
I know that. I'm just arguing with you.
Yeah. I love doing this in general, arguing. I've got good friends that I argue with on things that we both agree on, but it's fun.
I know, right?
It's fun to even kind of strengthen your position on it.
Absolutely.
But in my humble opinion, I would say that you've painted yourself into a corner in your head.
Yeah.
I think it's important that you do things the right way, that you care about the feedback of other people to a certain extent.
Yeah.
But if you feel passionately about what you're doing, that it's right, and that you're moving towards something that's your life purpose or your objectives, don't let people say that don't let what people think of you momentarily discourage you from that if you feel really tied into it. Now, don't do things that you're not bought into, that you haven't really thought about.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
If people are giving you negative feedback on it, be like, okay, maybe I should really, really evaluate my life on this. But that'd be my thought, because I've thought about you with I'm very impressed with what you do. I think you're on a very high growth curve. I think you're super accessible, which I don't know how long that will last because I think you're on a very high growth curve.
I think you think fairly high.
I think
you think I'm going to be.
I think you're a rising star, right? So I think you're a rising star in the industry, and so I'm like, but I've heard I've watched a lot of your videos. You talk about this head trash of, hey, it's Nick Slavic painting. You know, I've been in my small town. The Slavic name is known in this New Prague area, and I'm like, when you do it, then you realize it's possible and how much you talked yourself into a corner. There's probably some great metaphors that I'm just not thinking of, but
well, I think the problem is that up until 2 years ago when I decided to do this, and again, certain new things have to change in order to have a larger business, and I was a absolute perfect weapon for the up to 6-man painting company. Yep. I don't know that between the sales, the marketing, the books, the actual painting, the running of the crews, the apprenticeship program, man, that was perfect. But it's weird that my business doesn't have to change as much as I have to now.
Yeah.
To get to that other thing.
You might be surprised too at people who are better than you at your skill sets.
Yeah.
For what you're because you're worried about hiring out things that you're doing, or you're just worried about the personal touch of Nick Slavic?
Well, I'm worried that, and here's my worst nightmare.
Not trying to talk you out of it.
No, please. Again, this is awesome. I'm worried that I don't ever want to take for granted that maybe because the reason I'm successful.
Hopefully, I'm not pumping up like a competitor that's going to take me over.
No, and this probably boils down to all my sleepless nights revolve around this. If I grow my business, do I lose the only thing that made me successful? Is basically, the my love of this job and trade and craft. Yep. And I'm wondering if I keep taking steps back from the actual work of it, all of a sudden you may find that I devalue everything I've worked for. Now, again, I can't stop my body from not wanting to sleep because of that. I know it's probably not true because obviously people can do businesses, but I look at yours and I think, take this in the manner it's intended, but nobody knows you here. You know what I mean? And you can, if whether you're doing the work yourself, just because of the amount of people here, you could do the work yourself, or you could have 42 people. I don't think people would know the difference. And you can build this from scratch. So your identity now is, we got the people, we got the infrastructure. Logistically, nobody does it better. We can get guys quick. We can do this. That's not my identity, you know. And I worry about, okay, now how do I take what I've done? I mean, one of my ads 10 years ago used to be by hand by me. That was, you know what I mean? So it's like you're switching from that,
and nothing wrong with that.
No, and it's perfect for that.
Yeah.
And again, the problem is there was 10 times more work than I could ever handle. The marketing and my work every day was speaking so much volumes about what I thought about my trade and my business that it worked better than I needed it to. Yeah. And now it seems like there has to be a modification of that a little bit. So that's, again, perspective. Yeah. 2 years from now, I will be able to sleep at night. But I just need to move through this and make my body understand what I think my mind knows, and it'll let me sleep.
We could talk about for hours. Because for me, no one answers the phone better than I do at 6 p.m. Right?
Yeah.
I'm really good at, hello, this is Jason with Paris Painting. How can I help you?
Yeah.
Hi, Jason. I'm on your website. I see your face. This is great. Or I got your flyer. I saw your face on it. This is awesome. But I have 2 kids. My wife and we're having our 3rd kid. Yeah. It's just not appropriate for me to take calls between 6 and 8. Is it better that goes to my voicemail and no one answers the call? What's my loss rate on something like that?
Yeah.
Or is it better that someone who does it, not to devalue it, but if someone does it 80% as good as I do, am I okay with that?
Does that still check the win box or not?
Yeah, knowing that I'm not going to be able to continue to do it anyways.
That's another thing that we brought up too at Chicago is I'm trying to figure out now, my goal is to never get a call back on a job. Every customer, I mean, there's a threshold in my mind, 1 to 100. If the customer's expectation of a job they're going to pay for is a 50, I'm not saying 50% done, I'm just using it as a scale. If their thing is a 50, I was doing 99s. And now I'm trying to figure out if my crew does all the work and we go back to a 92, technically still above that, but is that still enough? In the customer's mind, was that only a 51 because I wasn't there now? So now I'm trying to figure out, what's acceptable there, and I'm using my body's physical reaction as a barometer, what I can sleep with at night.
Yep.
And so far, my body says you need to do 99.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to say, hey, body,
Man, you would.
this is still passable at 90.
Yeah,
you know,
you would thrive. Well, you're doing like this business thing.
Yeah.
But getting a business coach to sit down with you and just say, like, what are your goals? What do you value?
Yeah.
Like, what do you want? And then looking in the mirror and seeing, are my actions going to get me there? Because there's some like what I'm sensing from you.
Yeah.
It's like this internal tension.
It's huge internal tension.
And
yeah.
like and sometimes looking in the mirror. And there are some people that I've met in my life that are just really good at putting into plain English what you've been wrestling with and haven't really been able to address head on.
Yeah.
And sometimes that's the aha moment. Someone who could just verbalize in a very clear way what it is you're kind of dancing around.
Well, I've had 1 week of a 6-month
This is probably boring.
economic gardening.
So.
You would have no idea, Jason. For the 22 people out there in our shoes,
Yeah.
they'll watch this 1,000 times.
Yeah, so-
I mean, this is whatever you say today, I wish I had 10 years ago, because it took me 8 years of running my own business to figure out that I had the tractor trailer, the 52-foot bed, and I only filled it up 10 feet every day.
Yeah.
Whatever I was doing during the day, I could have just done 5 times more, and it wouldn't have took any more work. It probably would have been more pleasurable for me. You know, so it's a huge thing. But I'm in week 1 of a 6-month economic gardening process, and already we've had 1 session, and I've already dove in and basically formally processized my entire business since then. So I can't wait to see what happens. And I mean, it's things we have to do, but the problem is, like you said, in a 1-year business, if you tell them you need to write down all your processes, you need to start doing all this stuff, it's like, okay, good, but you need to just work through a lot of, like, you need to learn how to sell a job, you need to learn how to paint, you need to learn how to, like, get this process, what comes in, what comes out, get that down. Now, to a 5 to 10 year painting company, or quicker if you accelerate that quick, now all of a sudden when I sat down at this economic gardening thing and they're like, you need to write down all your processes, I'm like, oh yeah, that would be super helpful right now. Whereas a year ago, it wasn't even
it would have been extra work without.
Yeah, it would have been awesome to have an employee handbook and a mission statement and core goals for your core values for your business. But for what purpose? What are you actually going to put them on the ground for and use? And something clicked in the last 2 months, and it's like, oh yeah, that would actually be a useful thing.
And you put all this effort into architecting something that suddenly the light doesn't come into the room the way you want it to.
Exactly. Well, and that was a huge takeaway too. The master architect of the world, Frank Lloyd Wright, designed his own studio and didn't have enough light in it, so he had to change it.
Yeah.
So you think, okay, even the master.
Yeah. There's just something. Yeah. There's something very fundamental to planning something out. Well, it's like prototypes. That's why people build prototypes.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's why they build minimal viable products, because they like to work out the kinks that are hard to plan out in your head.
Because if you started off with, we all start off with whiteboards. If you just sat on a whiteboard and said, I'm going to design the perfect system for 5 years from now, it would be a joke. You'd look back at it and say, what, are you kidding me? You know?
Yeah, a lot of unknowns.
Okay, so
All right.
I think we've done enough. We are definitely going to do this again. I'll see if there's any pressing questions here. Thank you, everybody, for watching. I hope you enjoyed this as much as I did, and we are definitely going to do this again, and hopefully PDCA National Expo.
Yep.
Galveston?
They'll all be. Our whole team will be there.
Oh, that's going to be awesome.
Yeah.
So I'll be there too, and we're going to probably do another live video then. Let's see who else we got. We got any other pressing questions? Boy, it's been a busy day here. Let's see if we can scroll through here. Is there any other pressing questions we got to answer there?
Russ Perry asked, what level of work are you doing to sustain production at that level? And it's, so like I said, we're mostly residential repaints, and so it's lots and lots of little deals.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
So you're not doing 90% new construction where it's blow and go, builder's flat. I mean, you're actually doing
which is the
homeowner standard
smart
stuff.
Painters will do multi-housing and big commercial projects, because residential repaint, to the replicability and systemization that you talked about, is very challenging logistical problem.
Absolutely.
But if you can solve that logistical problem, you're head and shoulders above everyone else.
It's huge. The margins are higher. The people are more appreciative, and you'll grow by. If the housing market takes a tank, if it's 2007 again, you've basically wiped out a $4 million company. Whereas my business was still growing then because it was all hand-to-hand combat out there. I would make one homeowner, they would refer me, they would,
Yeah. So it's challenging.
Very challenging.
Someone said, thanks for the live stream. Is there software that you use for the data tracking, et cetera? Sorry if I missed it, but not with phone calls. Again, a lot of companies that do it better than we do. I've talked to a company out of Seattle.
I doubt it, but maybe.
Yeah. Well, there are better CRMs, I'm sure. I like Google Sheets and
Yeah.
Google Drive, just the Google Suite in general, because it's super customizable. And I changed so many things. At our growth curve, I've had to change things a ton. Kind of that architect problem we talked about.
Basic question for you, but why not Microsoft? Why Google? Is there any big advantages, or that's just what you started?
Yeah. So Google Sheets is a live form, which means that multiple people can be editing at the same time. Versus an Excel sheet is not a live form.
Yep.
That's the main value there.
Oh, okay.
So it's a cloud-based live form.
Okay.
So like Hoken and myself can both be typing on it,
and it'll just both start syncing.
Yep. I can see which box is in, and I can watch him type. As opposed to Excel, right? You're both trying to upload the same file.
Yeah.
So you both download it, you edit it, both trying to upload. And now you've got two versions of that same file. So that's
very interesting.
The nitty-gritty of it.
Awesome.
Someone said, what percentage of your customers are expecting Nick to turn up and paint their house, and what percentage aren't? Could you translate the metric into what direction you should be heading as a company owner?
Yeah, there's a difference in what is actually happening, what my customers actually expect of me, and what I think my customers actually expect of me. In my mind, if I don't do everything from buying the paint and sweeping up after and petting their dog and things like that, I feel I'm a complete failure. But turns out, 1 out of 100 actually vocalizes to me, oh, Nick, I thought you would be on this job. So there's data out there that would suggest that I'm a crazy person, but it doesn't change my body's reaction to thinking about that. Exactly.
Facts versus feelings.
Tell my body that, man.
Yeah.
If I could sleep at night, this would all be solved.
I'm not trying to talk you out of it, but you...
Yeah, tell my body. Tell my body to cooperate.
One more shout out to Peggy. This is probably... My daughter's hopefully napping by now, but hi, Peggy.
Sleep good. I probably got one sleeping too. So Art, I believe Art is my right before Christmas show, the guest there, Art Snarzik. Art is an amazing guy, former paint business owner, and now he deals with the people side of our business. Yeah. I'm sure he'll help you with numbers, but he's not the spreadsheet guy. He's the people person. And I've actually just started working with Art a couple months ago. He worked up a personality thing on me, and I think we're going to go through all my apprentices, and I'm going to figure them out. I'm going to turn them into math problems.
That's a great idea.
That's awesome. Okay. Well, thank you everyone here. This was awesome. This is one of my favorite episodes we've ever done. This is not the last time you're going to see Jason here. And if he's willing, we're going to make this a regular thing. So thank you everybody for watching. We appreciate it. Any questions you have after the show, definitely let us know. But otherwise, keep looking for his new and improved board, because Lord knows he can't do anything with that piece of trash he has now.
Just minimal viable product.
I can't believe you called it minimal viable. Super impressive, but thanks everybody for watching, and we'll see you guys next week.